What's up, people? Thank you for tuning into my channel today because we are going to be talking about the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray of Wonder Woman coming up next. So the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray for Wonder Woman, we are going to start off where we always start off with the video quality of the Blu-ray, just because that is the format that most people will be watching it on. And how is it? Well, it comes across really well. And for a release that is filmed on multiple different formats like this movie was, and like I believe the majority of the DC films that have been coming out over the last couple of years have been, I feel like this one fares like one of the better ones. You see, what I'm talking about is the fact that this was filmed digitally and also on film, and it depends on what scene you are actually viewing at the time. And you definitely see it. There is a grainier quality to some of the scenes in this film that they keep on wanting to have in the DC films, and I don't know if I necessarily like it, but that is something that they are very much pushing with this film, and I'm telling you, with the Justice League that is going to be coming out in just a couple of months, it's going to be the same damn thing. But regardless of what format that the scene that you're watching was shot on, it all comes across really well with a great amount of detail. There is a very sheeny quality to Diana's metal plating that she wears, and whenever you see it, it's very striking, but at the same point in time, the color palette of this movie is very muted, like a lot of the other DC films, and I feel like you could run into a lack of detail when you desaturate the color like that, and this particular film really doesn't. There's a lot of detail in her metal plating, there's a lot of detail in her fur coat that she wears, and all throughout the world. You have this smoke machine that they have on set. I saw it in some of the special features. And what that blue smoke does is it gives a light blue hue to everything when it is filmed. And it's very striking in that way. The color palette of this movie is very muted, and it is very just old school filmy to me. When you have darks, it is very dark, and when you have these brighter colors, like I said before, they look very muted, but it all comes across really well, and there is a very good amount of detail to this movie that is very, very, very blue to me. Very blue at times. And when we're talking about those black levels on the Blu-ray, I do feel like they are very prominent. This is a very dark film, and at times those black levels and that shadow definition kind of crushes some of the imagery that is on screen. It takes over a little bit, and I feel like that is a weakness to almost all of the DC transfers that we've been seeing, and that definitely it's still prominent here. But overall, I really did like how this movie looks, and I feel like it is a forward progression for DC to get films that still have that grit that they like, but at the same point in time, they look more visually appealing to the eyes. And for that, I'm going to have to give this an 8 out of 10. It is not that bad, people, and it is a strong entry for DC films. So how is the 4K presentation? It is actually really good, and it actually fixes problems that I had with the Blu-ray transfer, and that is always good to see in the 4K version. Just because, hey, that's why we're shelling out the extra money, you know. So what it actually fixes is a lot of the black levels. You know, DNR is very important to 4K transfers, and it definitely helps out this transfer here. Black levels and shadow definition are expertly done here, and it improves on the standard Blu-ray counterpart to this film. You know, this is a very black film, like I just said. It's very dark, and it's very inky. The black levels are very, very, very inky, and there is a blue hue, like we talked about in the Blu-ray version, that is also definitely here. But I feel like all of it comes together well here, and it doesn't take away from the overall image quality in 4K, which is important. I also see a very good uptick as far as the color palette of this 4K release. You know, brighter colors and upgraded colors in a wider color spectrum are very important to 4K releases, and you definitely see that upgrade to this 4K presentation. You know, this is a very desaturated movie, like we already talked about, that is very muted in its color palette. But I feel like the color palette of the entire movie, especially the reds that are in Diana's gold plating, and you know, just the dankness to the world that we see in England, it definitely is more striking in 4K because of the wider color range, and that is important. As far as detail goes, you know, you do get a pretty good upgrade in detail with this 4K release as well. You have, you know, you can see every single, you know, hair on Diana's coat, and really the detail in this 4K presentation is better than the detail in some other 4K presentations where it isn't a lot better than the Blu-ray counterpart. I feel like this is actually a great deal better. And for that, I'm going to have to give this one grade higher than the Blu-ray counterpart, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Either transfer comes across really well, but I feel like the 4K transfer definitely gets that nudge extra, and I feel like I like that a lot, because I can't always say that about these 4K transfers. So stay tuned, people, because next we're going to be talking about the audio quality of Wonder Woman, and we're going to be talking about some Dolby Atmos, and you guys all know how much I love to talk about that, and I will, coming up next. So the audio quality of Wonder Woman. You know, I actually really love what DC and Warner Brothers have been doing on their discs. They are giving us more of what we want, and they are giving us a quality product by putting the Dolby Atmos track not just on the 4K release, but they are also putting it on the standard Blu-ray release. And they don't have to do that. Marvel didn't for Guardians of the Galaxy, and I feel like that is something that Warner Brothers is ahead of Disney and Marvel on. So kudos to you, Warner Brothers. I definitely dig that. So how is it here? It's excellent. It is actually really, really, really excellent. You know, I feel like this movie, it definitely just asks for a great audio track, just because of, you know, the different settings that are in this movie. You know, you start off on Paradise Island, and you start off with this war between the Amazonians and the soldiers that are on their island, and it comes across really well in Dolby Atmos here. And you get these Amazonians flying over you, over the screen, and you definitely hear their arrows up in your height speakers. And then you get put in a different war when we are in Britain and World War One. You get the bombs going off, you get a lot of gunshots, and you get a lot of gunshots with the sniper rifles. And I feel like this track definitely does a good job of separating the height speakers from other speakers where you can hear those ricochets up above you. So kudos to you. So how did the other speakers work out? Because, height speakers aren't all that Dolby Atmos has to offer. They work out pretty well. This is a very expansive and very full sounding Dolby Atmos mix where it comes across very warm when the score kicks in. I really love the scores to all of these DC films that they have been doing, and I love Diana's anthem here with the electric guitar that comes in. Oh man, it definitely comes through in Dolby Atmos, the best that I have ever heard it. And I feel like if you like her anthem and you want to hear it in a film, then watch this movie, because it definitely comes in more than in Batman vs. Superman, and it is definitely one of my favorite anthems for characters that are in film today. The front speakers are always kicking the back speakers, and the rear speakers, they have a lot of action in them, and you constantly are hearing them. They're very active in this film, and this is just a really, really damn good Dolby Atmos track in a time that, I hear a lot of Dolby Atmos tracks being very good, very great. Since I started doing my reviews, I've been giving a lot of 10 out of 10s to Dolby Atmos tracks, but I'm going to have to do it again here. And I just feel like this is a great time for really great audio tracks of films and really great audio transfers. So if you're on the fence if you should upgrade your receiver to Dolby Atmos and DTS-X, you really should, because you're really going to notice the biggest difference on a 4K disc with these Dolby Atmos tracks. Because with the exception of this film and a lot of the stuff that Warner Brothers is coming out with, a lot of the Dolby Atmos tracks are relegated to the 4K discs. So next, I'm going to be getting into the special features for Wonder Woman. You guys won't want to miss it, because I actually have a decent amount to talk about there coming up next. So the special features for Wonder Woman. I feel like Warner Brothers definitely packs on the special features for these DC Universe releases. And I feel like Zack Snyder helped that out a lot, because he is big on special features. And you know what? Even though he isn't directing this movie is actually directed by Patty Jenkins, who directed Monster. The emphasis on special features is still here, and it is still really damn good. You have the first featurette, which is called Finding the Wonder Woman Within. And it is all about how important Wonder Woman is in the culture when it was created over 50 years ago, or maybe even 70 years ago. 75, I believe. And I definitely think that it is still important in today's culture, and it goes into that, and it goes into what the characters meant to Patty Jenkins and what they meant to Gal Gadot. And I definitely think that she is a very good and very powerful character to younger females, like I talked about in my review for this film. And I definitely think that just watching this is really something good and something uplifting. The next featurette we have is Crafting Wonder Woman, and it goes into the craft of making the Wonder Woman movie. You know what? This is where I found out about the blue smoke that I talked about in my video transfer. They had blue smoke machines that created a blue hue when it was filmed, and that goes into a lot of the World War One battle scenes in this movie. And that is something that I didn't know, and I really appreciated them telling me about that in this movie. And they definitely go into the mixture of real locations. I believe that they said that they had about 15 or 16 locations, and how that mixed with CGI. And this is a very CGI heavy film. There's a lot of CG and there's a lot of green screen in it, but I feel like the melding of the two, they did really well here, where you know these aren't just CG created buildings that Diana is around. This is a real building with green screen behind it, and I feel like movies that do green screen and CG very well, it is just using the CG as a more along the lines of like a backdrop, and that is exactly what they do here. We also have the Trinity, and this is something very interesting. It basically goes into Wonder Woman and how she relates to the other DC characters. And I feel like this is very interesting because of the fact that, when you think of Wonder Woman and when you think of other female centric characters that have been portrayed in film, like Black Widow or Scarlet Witch, you know, Black Widow and Scarlet Witch, they are very secondary characters. And this is very Wonder Woman focused, and Wonder Woman is very important and is still going to be important in the DCU. And I feel like she is her character herself is a very hidden gem that will really pull the DC universe up when they finally decide to really pull it up. And you know what? I definitely feel like she is a very important part of that, and this featurette definitely goes into that. The woman behind the camera is another really cool featurette where all of the women that are behind the scenes get together, and it's just a chat with their contribution to this film and what it meant to them. I feel like this is again a really good and important discussion to have. And you know what? I definitely do dig it a lot. You've got Warriors of Wonder Woman, where it takes a deeper look at Paradise Island and all of the warriors that are on that island and the specific roles that they play. Besides Diana's aunt and mother, I feel like the other warriors, while they are displayed in a good way in the movie, they're kind of overlooked, and this is a chance to get to know them as well, and I feel like that's really cool. The Themyscira, the Hidden Island, is a featurette that talks about filming on location on the island that they filmed for Diana's island, where she grew up. And you know what? This is cool, but it's only like 5 minutes long, so I don't feel like it gets very in depth. A photograph in time is a look at that photograph that Diana keeps of Steve and her in World War One, and that photograph really acts as connective tissue between this film and the other films in the DC universe, and it just takes a closer look at that. So even though it's 5 minutes long, and that's not that long, I feel like it is just long enough to really give you a better understanding of that photograph. Diana in the Modern World is another featurette where we talk about Diana and what the 21st century means to her and what it means for her. And this is a very short featurette, but it has a lot of information in it, and it is just cool to watch. Epilogue at its mission is basically the post-credit scene that never happened in Wonder Woman. It has that character and what her importance will be going forward. And I feel like it's kind of a moot point. I don't see her role when it comes to the Justice League, but hey, you know what? It's here, and, whatever. You also have deleted scenes and a blooper reel. Gal Gadot is pretty funny, and she's very funny in the bloopers. So if you like that kind of stuff, hey, it's here, and it's pretty funny. So next, I'm going to be getting into my last looks at Wonder Woman and my final scores. You guys won't want to miss it coming up next. So my final thoughts and my last look of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a very positive direction for the DC universe, and they really, really needed it. Really needed it. I haven't reviewed all of those DC films, and I definitely will be getting to them pretty damn soon. But I do have to say they struggled quite a bit. This movie doesn't struggle as much. You still have the villain problem. DC has a problem with villains, and this one is underdeveloped as well. And that's just something that I've had to come to terms with. But Wonder Woman herself and Gal Gadot as an actress, this is a very strong showcase for the actor. And I feel like for a movie that does tell the origin story, and we've seen so many damn origin stories, even though we never saw Diana's or Wonder Woman's, I feel like they subvert a certain amount of things that I get bored with a lot of origin stories today. They get through her actual origins pretty damn quick. And they get into what she will become in later films. Uh, that is basically what the majority of the film focuses on, and why she left Paradise Island to come to our world. And I do feel like that is the more important story to tell. That's the most interesting. I was wondering in Batman vs. Superman, well, why isn't Diana where she came from? Why is Diana so willing to help us out? And you do get some insight into this movie. And at the same point in time, and I feel like this is something that I didn't mention in my review for the movie itself, this is a self-contained story. This is not a story that you need to see Batman vs Superman for, or Suicide Squad, or Man of Steel. This is very self-contained, and I know that's something that Patty Jenkins, the director here, wanted for this film, and that is something that she accomplished. I feel like that makes this film very much stronger than any other of the DC Universe films. I also feel like the performances are pretty strong. Even though I am not 100% sold on Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, her supporting cast is very strong. And a shout out to Chris Pine. He is excellent in the movie. So what about the final scores? Well, the final scores are actually pretty damn strong here. And that is mainly because you have a movie that really got good ratings in every single one of the areas that I talked about today. And when you add all of them up, the Blu-ray got a 33 and the 4K Blu-ray got a 34. I believe that is the highest rating that I have given for a release since I started doing this. So that is very telling. And I feel like this is a positive track for the DC Universe. I thank you all for watching my channel so early on. I am excited to talk about everything that I have planned for you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for watching my channel so early on, and I will see all of you next time.